Okay, good. and I think that the intent of my letter to the superintendent was not in the spirit of having that sort of antagonism that you referred to. It was basically precipitated by the concerns of council members and members of the delegation as they read about this through secondary means to solicit information as to how it was that the decisions were made and at which point to award these bonuses and what mechanisms and what approval processes were done, so that in responding to taxpayers and to legislators and others, we could be very clear about the methodology used. We as a body, well, the council as a body, and the mayor's office has always been supportive of educational reform. But in the last round of budgeting, there was limited funds. So we had to make decisions as to how much to apportion to education. And I think part of the problem is one of transparency, that there needs to be more transparency, and we have to work towards more transparency so that when we get a budget, you're not making a request, additional request of $500,000 to support kindergarten and $500,000 to support adult ed, or otherwise you would cut those programs, but yet in your benefits line include bonuses, because if you have a transparent line-by-line budget, and this is something to work for in the future, we can be more clear to our constituents, to the taxpayers, to the legislatures, as to what composes that budget. I am not philosophically against merit-based payments. What I think the issue is I don't know if the Board of Ed specifically went over the bonuses for the administrators and what processes were used to say, okay, these we're going to award these. I don't really know even specifically what action was taken by the board in terms of saying, okay, we're going to move ahead to disperse these bonuses, because even though they might be tucked into some contractual language, I am unfamiliar, at least sitting from the mayor's office, having to deal with over 20 collective bargaining units, who's going to get disbursements and the size of these disbursements. Because the bigger the disbursements, the more they call into question the integrity of our fiscal management. So where I'm trying to move to is a way that we can support efforts of reform and compensating people for good work, but doing it through a budget process that it's more transparent, and doing it in a way that we can be accountable to the folks that are having to take 52 cents of every dollar to support educational efforts. That's the place that I want to be at. In terms of and the superintendent did respond, and we are in the process of drafting a response to his letter, and also to arrange to meet with the board and meet with the superintendent to have a further discussion on this, because we're building next year's budget and we want to make sure what it is that is included in the budget. We don't want to, I prefer not to have a lump sum line of 97 or whatever the amount is for benefits. I would like to know how much is vested for bonuses, so that in the process of approving the budget, we can prioritize kindergarten, salaries, benefits, and all the different areas. So that's something to work for. In terms of the lobbying efforts for policies, I think that I met with the delegation early on in terms of inventorying all the different legislative priorities and which ones were educational. I've worked very hard to support and get support from the governor with regards to the ECS monies, so that we're at least stable and we don't suffer impact there. But we also have to be mindful that if we are not on the same page in terms of legislative priorities, that ultimately we might suffer some budgetary consequences when this legislation is passed, and then it requires an increased effort on our part, from a budget perspective, to have to increase taxes or raise an additional burden to our taxpayers with regards to educational funding. So I would want for us to be on the same page moving forward, so that we can have an open, transparent dialogue as to where the priorities are and where these priorities are in the budget, using a very transparent process as to where the money is and where it's going, rather than having it incorporated within the benefits line, and then with a level of discretion that might not be up to par with the best principles of transparency to issue the bonuses. So it's not that I disagree with the need to compensate folks for good work and for results, because it's supposed to be a results-driven system where you compensate and you reward those folks that are having an impact on children. It's more a budgetary, fiscal accountability issue, because you don't want to deprive either council or the legislature of that ability to forecast, or of that ability to debate the merits of particular disbursements within a budget when you're making requests on other sides to support other things. We want to be transparent in that process. Otherwise, you know, we're going to run the risk that we're going to be at odds with other constituencies and other layers of government, because we need to be on the same page. And I hope that moving forward we can do that. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Torres and Kennedy also.